How you doing, folks? My name's Jesse. Vlog entry number 14, February 28th. What have I been working on? Well, if the last couple band practices have been any indication, I've been working on eating shit. I was sick for a couple weeks and really didn't feel like playing. When I was able to get back to band practice, it was bad. I think of that quote from Bull Durham when Kevin Costner looked at Crash and said, "You couldn't hit water if you fell out of a boat." I felt like that. It wasn't just physical. I mean, I was struggling to bend to pitch and play things up to speed, and timing was off. But more than that, it was also mental. I can't play what I can't hear in my head. And when the time would come for me to take a solo, I would look down and go, "What are these? I know I'm supposed to do something with them, but I don't have the first idea." The guys were very kind, but I knew. What's the line? I read it. John McLaughlin said it in an article I read in Guitar Player magazine that I think he got from somewhere. He said, "If you don't practice for a day, you'll know. If you don't practice for a couple of days, your friends know. If you don't practice for a week, everybody knows." And that's the truth. So I said, well, I really need to get back to the drawing board. I need to get some new ideas and some new blood going. So I went online and started stealing ideas and started looking at how I would do things. I found a really cool jump blues backing track, and I thought this is a great way to go, because with jump blues you cannot Chuck Berry or Eric Clapton or Stevie Ray Vaughan your way out of it. Not to say those guys couldn't play jump blues, and I love all of them. But I think it's common knowledge that a lazy guitar player can lean on the easier aspects of their styles. And so jump blues kind of brought some discipline in. So I had to think about approaching things, from a Mixolydian point of view, and I had to think about, just trying to come up with something cool. And so I started, looking for licks to steal. And Zac Childs had some great licks. One was from a link to a video he did about flat wound strings versus round wound strings versus half round strings. And it kind of went sort of like... it wasn't exactly like that. I put my own flourish on it, but that's basically the lick. And then I saw the video that Guthrie Trapp did where he said, he gave us a homework. And he said, take a lick and play it everywhere you can find a place on the fingerboard. And I've done that before, but I did it with easier stuff, like single note stuff, or, or something like that. But this was a challenging lick. And so this exercise turned out to be a real mother. I'm going to run through it. I'm probably going to hit some clams, but I want to run through it, tell you what I learned from it, and then talk about this guitar, okay? So I took that lick and I brought it down here first. Probably the best I've done it in weeks. So, what did I learn from that? Well, when Guthrie was talking in the video, he said, try and imagine shapes. And I tried, and you can kind of sort of see some of the shapes, but I decided I want to play the notes the way, I want to play all the notes that are in that lick. And I found that I really kind of had to adjust what I was doing in order to get those notes to play it in a way that was easier. For instance, that opening, well, in order to hit those licks, these two opens, half the lick in this position is in it just because it's the easiest way to play it. Likewise, when I went over to here, now I can't hit a low D, so I said, what am I going to do? Well, I'll hit a high D. Now it changes the lick, but it changes it into something that is cool. It could be cool. So I filed that away. Then this one, again, I could run down here, but that's a lot of jumping around. So why not hit the G up here, And then I can let go. Got the open D. And I can play it like I played it in the last position. So I thought that was really cool. A couple of them were pretty straightforward. The one I think that really kind of challenged me, and at first I was like, I can't play it there. And then something inside me said, why? Why can't you play it there? And I said, well, there aren't any strings over here. And it's like, we'll work around it. Now I want to go to the index finger, but that doesn't really set me up for the next lick unless I want to play it on the low E string. So what I ended up doing, ring finger, and that makes it easier to do. So this was an exercise where I really learned a lot from it about how to compensate for things and adjust things and making new discoveries, out of that. Now, what have I been doing it with? Well, this isn't my guitar. This is my buddy Don's guitar. Don wanted me to check it out, the intonation, and make sure it was solid. I think he really just kind of wanted to show me how cool it was, which I really appreciate. Don bought this from an old friend of his. His friend was in the Navy and was stationed in Japan in the 80s. And he picked up this Yamaha in Japan. So this Yamaha came back to America via a submarine, which is kind of a cool thing. It's a Yamaha LP400, set neck, mahogany body, maple cap. Pretty much your standard Les Paul. And Don would jam with his friend sometime, and his friend had this guitar, and Don said there was something about this guitar that just made me go, wow. And I get it. So he caught up with his friend again after a number of years, and he said to him, hey, what are you doing with that Yamaha? You doing anything with it? He's like, nah. He goes, well, I'll buy it off of you. And the guy relented. Now, this thing is in absolutely pristine condition. I can find neither ding nor mark. There's something that sort of could maybe be a scratch right here, but looking at it, I can tell it would easily buff out. Frets were in good shape. Pickups were great. The neck pickup is just... Put it on the neck pickup. In the middle pickup position, really bright, really defined bridge pickup. It's spotless. Only thing that's wrong with it is the it's got bridge collapse. And it looks bad, but it doesn't. And you can tell when you play it that the E string and the A string and the B string and the E string are higher than the D and the G string. But for some reason, it doesn't affect the playability. When Don handed me the guitar, the action was ridiculously low. Like, play it itself kind of low. And that's cool. But looking at this bridge collapse, I was thinking, that's in the long haul, that's really gonna unevenly wear the frets. So I was looking at what to do about bridge collapse. There are people that say they repair it. They'll take the bridge and create a caul out of wood that matches the radius, and they'll put it in either a bench vise or a C clamp and slowly, very slowly, and very carefully apply pressure over a long period of time and bring it back to its original shape. And I'm not going to do that. And here's why. One, I have shit for luck. And odds are this thing's made out of pot metal. And it would be just my luck that it would snap. Assuming that I could get it to work, get it to work at all. Because the other issue is, like, suppose I bend it in shape and then because the metal has been weakened, it just immediately reverts back to its concave shape. So that was that issue. I would love to just get another bridge and replace it, but the problem is that these Yamahas their bridges aren't standard ABR1 size bridges. A standard Gibson bridge is somewhere between 73 and 74 millimeters. These are 77. Just enough to ruin your day, And I have a friend who's in the Air Force stationed in Japan, and he's a guitar nut. And I messaged him. I was like, dude, here's the situation. I laid it out for him. I said, next time you go out, can you look around and see if you can find some place that might have a new old stock bridge or something like that? And he said, yeah, sure. No luck. They are essentially made out of unobtainium. So what are you going to do? Well, this is the solution I came up with, and feel free to tell me I did it wrong, because I'm just working off of my surmising here. What I ended up doing is I made a shim to put underneath of it. Now, I took one of these tools here, and I got the shape of the top of the guitar, because I wanted the bottom of it to match that. I got a small piece of rosewood, and I traced this on the bottom of it. And then I got a radius gauge, and I got a 12-inch radius. And then I got some feeler gauges, and I measured the bridge at the lowest point in the middle. Added like maybe 10 thousandths or something like that, just to give it a little more lift, just enough to bring it up a little bit. And then I took the radius and I drew a radius over it where it would match those marks where the feeler gauges were. Cut it out with a coping saw, sanded it with a Dremel, and popped it in. The strings sit higher, but because the action was so ridiculously low, and Don likes nines on his guitar, it feels good. My hope is that the same string pressure that pushed this bridge out of shape will, over time, push it back into shape. So when you look, you can see there's some space on the ends of the bridge where the shim doesn't touch. Now, I've talked to Don about it, and Don's cool with it. And what he said is next year he's going to give me the guitar. He's going to lend me the guitar, and we'll take a look and see if the bridge has moved any. Because I'm hopeful. It's not going to get worse, at least, because I've got the middle supported. Hopefully, over time, the ends will come down. So that's what I did. The open book headstock is kind of a giveaway to me that this was an import, because we all know the story in 77, I think it was 76 or 77. Gibson filed an injunction with Ibanez. I think it was at a NAMM show, which is why open book Ibanez guitars are called lawsuit guitars. This easily could have been a lawsuit guitar. But, you know, like I said, it was imported from Japan. So what have I been thinking about? Well, I've been thinking about time. This would have been a perfect guitar, an absolutely flawless guitar, except for time. Time and pressure did this to it. It's still a great guitar. It's just not perfect. And isn't that the way with all of us? Time just kind of works on us, gives us arthritis, bows us in the back, knees give out. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Question is, what do we do about it? How do we deal with it? Well, that's something I'm still working on. Anyway, I hope you found this entertaining. My name's Jesse. I'll talk to you later.